I have the pleasure to represent AJO Holdings. They are, in fact, a non-profit going by the name Natural Selection. They have, in fact, filed a request for a variance to be allowed to dispense medical marijuana in the address of Westgate Drive. Here today, we have representatives of the company. We have Aiden O'Donovan, Brandon Banks, both principals, and we have Dan Linsky, who's the security director. Aiden has great experience in the medical marijuana field, operates a facility in Colorado, originally from Newton, Massachusetts. And Brandon has been working with Natural Selection since the beginning in the Colorado operations. And Mr. Linsky, some of you may know or recall seeing, was commissioner with the Brockton Police Department. In fact, is now in the private security business and is in fact their director of security. Also, the Prince Lobel, Mr. Daniel, is here. They were kind enough to prepare the application and the brief that you had before you. That's extremely comprehensive. Asked me to assist in the presentation, and I am happy to do so. I will pass it over to Aiden to make the presentation for you. But first I want to do is an overview. You have a request for variance pursuant to 2729 because it is in fact in a C2 zone. And the request is allowed to have a dispensing of medical marijuana in the facility. Medical marijuana, as you know, was a ballot issue that passed, and since approximately 1912 has in fact been the law of the land here in Massachusetts. They have created regulations for the Department of Public Health. Those regulations are in fact in full force and effect, and it is clearly one of the most highly regulated pharmacological businesses in certainly Massachusetts and maybe the United States. The specific application that was before you tracked the humanitarian marijuana use provision, which is our special permit in the bylaw. They did so, although that is not the relief sought, because it in fact is not contained within the overlay district, which is part of that section of the ordinance. In fact, what you have is a variance, and they also provided you with a, quote, dimensional variance. That dimensional variance, if you look at it, it basically stems from the special permit bylaw that talks about the distance between a public park, and as you know, D.W. Field Park is in fact within a short distance away. It is wooded. There are no residential abutters. There's no residential impact at all on the facility, and it is solely within the commercial district of the Westgate Drive. I would say before we get into a presentation, I know that a number of representatives of the city are here. They spent a lot of time working on an overlay district, and they provided that to you, which in fact has resulted in the utilization of one facility. I congratulate the representatives of the city. They worked hard. They were looking at a piece of legislation that came to them in 2012. Medical marijuana was absolutely unknown at the present time. You didn't know whether you had public safety issues. You didn't know what you're going to deal with. There have been differing approaches by different communities. Some of you saw the globe this weekend. You clearly identified that there's a facility in Hanover or Norwell right next to a Friendly's. Different communities have approached it in different ways. Brockton was concerned about public safety issues. As a result of the public safety issues, they wound up creating what is essentially an overlay district in a narrow enclosed area within the border, essentially, of the West Bridgewater, town of West Bridgewater. And so it is in the far southeast corner of the city of Brockton. It's essentially the position of the applicant. The state statute created access to the medical marijuana, which in fact has been of significant benefit to people with, debilitating diseases, including cancer, as common as arthritic conditions and end-of-life issues, in which they needed and they received support for pain relief from the utilization of the drug. Because of that, and because of the nature of the patients who oftentimes have difficulty in transportation, the point that the applicant will be trying to make to you, and I'll address it at a later date, is that what we're seeking to do is to meet the spirit of the state statute, also to provide ease and access to the public in a more central location so that they can utilize the facility for purposes of securing the medical marijuana, as you would normally with any drug store that you have. Its ease of access is always so critical. Also, public transportation, ease of access, it's critical. So, with your permission, I'll come back and close, but I'd like to have Aiden come in